All right, folks. Today we're going to be taking a look at a guy who I consider to be one of the most underrated defensive tackles in the 2023 NFL draft class, Mazi Smith out of Michigan. This is a guy who, behind Jalen Carter and Kalijah Kancey, I see being the D tackle 3 of this draft, and it's not consensus for most people, but he is easily the best run defender and the best at taking on double team blocks out of anybody. And because he's not as talented of a pass rusher as Kancey or Jalen Carter or even a Keanu Benton, he is going to fall down draft boards. But this guy is so stout in the run game. He played a very important role in that Michigan defense on a team that was outstanding on that side of the ball, played with great pass rushers like Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, and again, kind of flew under the radar because he wasn't the premier player on that D line. His role wasn't to be a pass rusher and get after the quarterback. His role was to clog up double teams, stop the run game, and open up those third down plays. But with that being said, he's also a very talented pass rusher. Like, he can get after the quarterback. It's just not what he was really asked to do at Michigan. But today, we're going to look at his film, talk about him a little bit, and hopefully, if you're watching this after your team drafted him, you got a pretty good football player in your hands, I can tell you that. And yeah, let's get into it. So the first clip I want to take a look at is this rep against Purdue. If you don't remember from the intro, which was about 30 seconds ago, I mentioned that Mazi Smith is really stout in the run game and does a great job of taking on double team blocks, and this play is Exhibit A. On this play, it's a very simple zone concept for the offense. Play side guard is going to try to reach Mazi Smith, and then the center is going to try to combo, and basically their goal here, work their way up to the Mike linebacker while also creating a gap for the running back. Now the running back's role in this play, basically just find a hole. It's a zone scheme. And Mazi Smith on this play is lined up in what we would call a 2 technique, head up on the guard. Now, on this play, again, guard's going to try to reach Mazi Smith, but watch how violent he gets with the hands, rips him off, and then ends up making the tackle alongside his play side linebacker. So not only did he prevent the offensive line from getting to the second level, therefore helping out his linebackers, but he also just does a phenomenal job of making the play on his own. Again, phenomenal play, and we're going to see a whole lot of these for the rest of the film session. Next up, we have yet another impressive play in the run game from Mazi Smith, except this time it's against Penn State, who's in 12 personnel and running the ball under center, which you don't see a lot of at the college level, but don't let the change in personnel and formation fool you. This is actually a really similar concept to the last play we saw. Again, zone run scheme. You're going to see double teams at the first level. Nick Singleton is just looking for a crease here. There's no one read, but he's just trying to find a hole and get open. And then you see Mazi Smith right here lined up in a shade technique. Now, he's actually not going to get double teamed on this play because he's running a stunt all the way to the opposite shoulder of the guard. But watch what happens when this guy gets a one-on-one opportunity. Watch how violent he is with the hands. Watch how good that step is. Good flip of the hips, and then ends up making the tackle. This is the kind of stuff that makes him a nightmare for play callers. When you're game planning for a guy like this, you can't leave him one-on-one with a guard. That's a 300-pound man that he just threw on the floor. And again, good footwork here. He's not the most agile guy, not an elite pass rusher, but he's going to make stops like this in the run game. Moving on to some impressive clips from his playoff game against TCU. The first play I want to look at is yet another stoppage in the run game. We don't have the tight on this, unfortunately, but it's still a really good play. Here TCU's running a read option concept, so they're going to leave this play side defensive end unblocked. And here he is in a 2 technique, basically on an island by himself. The tackle's going to chip him and move up to the linebacker. And what Mazi Smith does on this play is does a great job of getting extension, making the tackle, and not getting driven back. Again, this guy is an absolute force. You're very hard-pressed to run the football on him. And you're not going to get 10 sacks a year out of this guy, but no team is going to be able to just run the football down your throat when you got this guy anchoring it down in the middle. Great play. Now, I understand that I have a lot of praise for Mazi Smith, particularly in the run game, but if I was an offensive coordinator game planning for this guy, I would run tempo or hurry up 99% of the time, and that's because this guy sometimes, not all the time, has a problem with getting out of his stance. And by that I mean sometimes the ball's snapped and the offensive line's moving, and it feels like it's very reactionary, and he just doesn't get a good enough first step off of the ball to switch the line of scrimmage. And as a defensive line coach, I'd be a little bit concerned because that's his biggest asset is that he doesn't get blown off the ball. He doesn't really get pushed back on double teams. But on this play, you're going to see here TCU is going to snap the ball, and it's just going to take Mazi Smith a second before getting out of his stance. But that makes all the difference on this run play and gives this running back a free 7 yards. Again, we could watch it in case you missed it. It's very subtle. But TCU, again, they're going to run the ball here, and Mazi Smith, just by a millisecond, gets blown off the ball. It's actually how the Chiefs beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, running that tempo, getting ahead of those defensive tackles. It's why their offensive line was so successful against us, but it is something to be concerned about. But let's get on to some pass rushing tape. So we've talked about Mazi Smith in the run game. We know he can stop the run. We know he can take on double team blocks. All very valuable stuff. But Dom, it's a passing league. We need to know that he's going to be able to get after the quarterback and play all 3 downs. Well, he can do that, and there is potential there. He's going to need a good defensive line coach to show him how to hit a chop, dip, rip, work a bend. But there's a foundation there. Here's a really good play he has against TCU. It's a solid rep. He doesn't end up getting the sack or anything, but I love the get off. I love the way he attacks this guy. And believe it or not, we have the tight film. So let's watch this real quick. Here he is lined up in this 3 technique. I just love the way he gets separation and drives this guy back. Not a great play, so I'm not going to show the whole thing, but it's a really good rep and a really good foundation. And we can actually move to watch this from the tight because you're going to watch. They send a blitz here. But Mazi Smith here with that red arrow, just, I don't know, really solid rep, and it's something to build off of, especially if you want to get this guy involved as a pass rusher. Actually, folks, before we move on, I found some better footage of one of his pass rush reps against TCU, so we're going to take a look at this real quick. This is a pretty solid rep, and it actually reminds me of DJ Reader when he entered the league, who was, primarily a run stopper for the Texans, but really worked on his craft and became a really solid pass rusher. He's been very good for the Bengals, and this is the foundation I like to see. A really good get off, really good use of the hands. Obviously doesn't get the sack on this play. I don't think he recorded any sacks, but it's a really solid play nonetheless. Again, solid get off, going to work the separation, just needs a move. Just needs a solid defensive line coach to give him a plan, because right now it looks like he's just all over the place and he's just using his athleticism. But that's a really good sign for NFL scouts and coaches. If this guy's such a raw talent, and with some solid coaching, he can really take it to the next level. Really solid rep here. I love the way he uses his hands. I love the get off. Just let's get a plan. Let's get a move. Moving on from his film against TCU, we actually have another pretty solid pass rush rep against Ohio State. And if you'll notice a trend here, I'm only showing his clips against top flight competition because I don't really care what he did earlier in the season against some FCS school. I want to see him against some of the best guys in the draft. Well, here he is pass rushing against Paris Johnson, who's most likely going to be the first tackle taken off the board in the draft this year. But he's going to stunt from this 3 technique, work to a 5, actually still get chipped by the running back, but almost get the sack here. I really like the foundation. I love his bend. I love his get off here. Love the way he's ripping through. It's just, he's a millisecond off of getting Stroud there, but I really like the clip. Really like the work. Let's watch it again, actually. Again, good bend, good chop, dip, rip. Just milliseconds away from a sack. Love it. And last but not least, folks, to end this thing on a positive note, I want to go back to 2021 and show this clip of Mazi Smith doing what he does best, stopping the run, but against one of the best offensive line prospects currently in the NFL, Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. As you can see, Aiden Hutchinson's still here on the play, but Iowa here running a simple split zone concept. They're going to motion the tight end over here just so he can kick out block Hutchinson right there. Mazi Smith lined up in the shade technique. Linderbaum's going to try to reach him, but he does a great job getting extension and making the tackle. We're going to watch this play yet again. You can watch great separation with the arms. He's really stout, really strong, and the fact that he was doing this as a sophomore and continued to do this throughout his collegiate career, so impressive. And yeah, that concludes today's video. I hope you guys learned something today, especially for those of you that don't watch a lot of defensive tackles. And hopefully by the end of this video, you are as high on Mazi Smith as I am. I know he kind of flies under the radar because he's not the flashy pass rusher that Jalen Carter or Kalijah Kancey is, but he's still going to have a really solid NFL career. And for those of you that are watching this video after the draft, potentially because your team drafted him, you got a really good football player, and I hope you agree with me on that as well. But with that being said, folks, everybody have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and go Birds.